Welcome to the Every Night is Game Night preview series, the show where designers and publishers share their passion and answer critical questions about their Kickstarter projects. If you're on the fence about a pledge, this is the show for you.
ENGN Preview Series, Episode 31, Holding On, The Troubled Life of Billy Kerr, with Michael Fox and Rory O'Connor. Yo, my peoples, what's up? Welcome back to the Every Night is Game Night Preview Series. I'm your host, Jason. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you listen to part one of our Origins preview on the main podcast, you will hear about a lot of cool games that fortunately, I won't be able to go, but my partner Anthony is going to be there testing all this stuff. But this game that we're going to do a full preview for is so out there and so strange, but so fascinating that I had to have these two gentlemen on. You've heard them both in the podcast before in various capacities, but let me introduce you to them now. The game is Holding On, The Troubled Life of Billy Kerr, and we have the designer, Michael Fox, here. Thank you for joining the show.
Hey, thank you very much for having me. Co-designer, by the way.
Co-designer, and his partner in crime, the co-designer, also, they are both from Hub Games, formerly the Creativity Hub. We have Rory O'Connor. Yes, that Rory is on the show. Welcome.
Hey, Jason, how are you?
All right. So, yes, we had Rory on the show to talk about the story cubes a little while ago with Albert Hernandez from the One Player Guild. That was awesome. Michael was on our PAX show previewing Untold Adventures Await, which we were just talking about Untold before the show. Untold, the big winner of Family Game of the Year from the UK Games Expo. Congratulations on that.
That was cool. That was like really exciting. You know, it's a game that, I mean, Rory and his co-designer on that one, John, have been working on for a long time making that happen, and it's just like incredibly gratifying that, hey, you know, it's like the you love us, you really love us kind of thing.
Well, some people love you. The people that could figure out that app.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, with Hub Games, when we changed direction, we really wanted to put out games that were different and, you know, stood above the rest in terms of the idea, the content behind it. And so I think the combination of the award for Untold Adventures Await and then the reaction to Holding On was kind of a little bit reassuring that we're heading in the right direction with all of this.
Mm-hmm. And what I was mentioning before with the app, apparently at the UK Games Expo, there was an app that you could download in order to vote for the game, and some people had problems with it. So I think that someone back there at Hub Games was engaged in some creative electronic voter suppression. So
we couldn't possibly comment. Come on.
We were way too busy demoing.
Yeah.
To rig the system.
That's true. Especially for this game. So let's get on to Holding On. Because this game, when I first reached out to you guys, I saw it. I'm like, wow, I got it. People love, they know I love my theme. I love my cooperative play. This does have a solo mode, so we'll get to that, in a little bit. And when I saw this game, I'm like, wow, what is this beast? And I emailed you guys, and you're like, yes, let's go on the show so we could explain the strange creature that we're about to unleash in the world.
Hey, it's out there now. There's no stopping it.
There you go.
So yeah, dude, anything you want to know, we are an open book. But of course, we will enact our spoilers policy because, of course, the game is full of secrets and hidden away things. So we hereby reserve the right to not say certain things about it.
Our answers could be very obtuse at times.
Circumspect, yes. I imagine you guys walk like kind of talking while you're waving your arms in a circle and saying, oh, okay.
Well, it's weird because I'm so excited to share this with people, and we've been living with the story for kind of months now at this point. And it's like, I just want someone to play the full game so I can sit down with them over a coffee or a beer and talk to them about it.
Yeah, definitely. I cannot wait to play this game as well. I'm really sad that I won't be at Origins. So just to be clear, this game is not being Kickstarted. We usually preview Kickstarters. It's not being Kickstarted or pre-ordered. It is being demoed at Origins and at GenCon and released at Essen. Is that correct?
Yes. It will be available for pre-order around September once we know the ship is on the water. So people who really want to get their hands on it at the time of release, we will have a pre-order available on wearehubgames.com.
All right, so we have beat around the bush enough. Let us get into Holding On, The Troubled Life of Billy Kerr. Let's start with just an executive summary. What kind of game is this, and what story are you trying to tell with it?
So if you boil it all down, it's basically a cooperative game with worker placement elements, but also a very powerful and strong narrative element to it as well. So the concept behind it is you are the nurses who work in a medical facility, and you're going to work one morning, and the head nurse comes up to you, hands you a file, and says, I think you're going to be in for a bit of a busy time. So she hands you the file, you read it, and you know very little about this patient who was rushed in. His name is Billy Kerr. He's 60 years old, and he had a massive heart attack on a flight from Sydney in Australia to London, and that is pretty much it. That's all the information you have at the very beginning of the game. So from a technical standpoint, the game is split into 10 scenarios that you will work through. You cannot progress from one scenario until you beat it. So it's Rory's described it as like a video game. It's like you can't go to level 2 until you beat level 1. Mm-hmm. But each scenario will ask you to do different things. There'll be different challenges that you'll be looking to discover from Billy's past. And as you work through these scenarios, like managing his health and also finding out the story behind his life, you'll learn his whole story. You'll learn his whole background, and you'll find that not everything in this game is black and white.
Okay, so let me put a pin on the very interesting story just for a second. I feel like that's going to be the main draw of the game. I feel like the audience is going to want to know, you said worker placement elements. Could you elaborate on that a little bit? So like as a game, what exactly are we in for here?
So this is actually one of the bits that I love about this game, and for me what really makes it replayable is the challenge that the mechanical game presents to the players. So each day one player is nominated as a shift manager, and effectively they become the alpha player for that round, and they're responsible for assigning people to cover shifts during the day. The shifts are revealed as cards, and there's 3 shifts for each day. They will show you how many staff are needed to cover that shift. This might be a combination of the players themselves or some assistants that are available as part of the overall care team. So as you're allocating people, you have to factor in, who's got the most trust with Billy, so when they want to talk to him, who's maybe got care tokens so they can provide medical care to slow his decline, which of the staff are maybe carrying stress that they've built up by covering too many shifts in the past, and so may end up being sent home on leave as a result of getting overstressed during the day. So you're kind of playing mechanically. You're playing for kind of keeping Billy's condition stable. You're playing for gathering care tokens, which are going to be needed to provide that medical care, and also for talking to Billy. And then you'll also be kind of playing to get partial memories that are the kind of foundation of the story that Billy's going to be revealing to you as you spend time with him.
So that's really interesting. So it's a fully cooperative game. There's no competition or anything or hidden traitor. Mm-hmm. That'd be silly. But
we'll hold that for the sequel.
Billy's assassin is still around the corner, sneaking in there. Sorry about that.
Promo scenario.
So the one player is the alpha player, and they're kind of coordinating all the different other things that are happening. How long is each scenario? Like, would you say about what sounds like about 30 to 45 minutes, or is that a little bit longer than that?
Just before I answer that, one thing I wanted to throw in about the alpha player can assign people to a shift, but they don't get to tell them what they do during the shift. So that comes down to who is the most kind of senior staff on the shift at the time, and they make the decision whether they want to provide medical care or palliative care for Billy. So even though, yes, the alpha player might tell them what they should do, you still get to kind of go, well, no, not going to listen, going to do this instead.
So yeah, it's very much like the players who are assigned to each shift, they make the call as to what they think is best for Billy and for their progress in the game at that time. But then at the end of every day, at the end of each of the, when 3 shifts have been done and you do your cleanup, that shift manager role, that alpha player role, moves around the table. So the next player then takes control of it. So we wanted very much to try and stop that alpha player, that quarterbacking kind of thing, by essentially just granting people this high level power every couple of turns. So we found in testing, and we found in the demos that we've done, especially this past weekend's UK Games Expo, that it does work very, very well. And you know what we're like, Jason. We're not exactly like the kind of folks who want to go around patting ourselves on the back all the time, but this it actually works, and it's like, wow, that's impressive. We did all right.
So you actually solved Alpha Player by leaning into it and saying, okay, everybody gets a chance at Alpha Gamer.
Yeah, well, kind of, yeah. And the other thing is, like, most co-op games use abilities to try and differentiate what are essentially like same choices for players. Right. And what we found as we were playing is that people's personality naturally came out whilst playing this game. So you've got the ones who really want to care for Billy and keep him alive, and others are saying, like, screw that, we want to get the memories, and you almost feel like they're throttling him in the bed to try and, like, get him to talk. And we found that dynamic was far more interesting, because even when we play it as a team, there's a certain team member who we will kind of, like, send off to do other things to try and mitigate, the damage they will cause during a shift. And at the same time, there's a particular kind of decision they hate making on a shift. So he will always send me to cover that shift. He's like, Rory, you deal with that shift. So he can kind of save himself for the glory moments.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And how long did you say each scenario would last?
So each scenario takes between 45 and 60 minutes. Okay. Obviously, if you're demoing it at a show, it takes that little bit longer because there's a lot more, a lot more sort of noise around you, and there's a lot more hand-holding that needs to be done. But generally we're looking at around sort of like 45 to 60 minutes. So yeah, you're not going to be at the table for a huge amount of time, because, we didn't want it to be one of these 2 or 3 hour extravaganzas. Also, like I said earlier, if you don't beat the scenario, the only way to progress is to try again and try and be successful. And we found, on average, we're sort of like looking at between sort of like 17, maybe sort of like 20, up to 20 plays to actually get through the whole thing. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then after those 20 plays, is it done? Have you solved the issue and you can move on like a legacy game? How does that work?
Technically, I mean, the story will have been told at that point, and you'll have discovered things about Billy. But kind of like we said at the beginning, the nature of the gameplay makes it for a highly replayable game. When we were developing the game, we were playing with literally blank cards. And still the combination of the worker placement and then the kind of picture building aspect of the game, where you're trying to play cards into Billy's collected memories, just makes for a really neat kind of race against the clock. That makes the game, I think, highly replayable. So the goal would be at the end that the last scenario is probably the one that you would keep playing. Mm-hmm. But likewise, if you've got friends over, you could easily reset the game and play the first scenario with them and introduce them to it. I just wanted to throw in one thing about the playtime, because kind of one of the voices not here is my partner Anita, who's also the co-founder of the company. She's not massively into games, and it always kind of questions the assumptions that we make about, everything we do in games. So the playtime is a really big factor in that respect. Of we wanted to make a game that introduced kind of more people to gaming in a way that Pandemic did with its kind of non-sci-fi, non-fantasy theme. It was more of a real-world theme that people could get behind, kind of like Terraforming Mars as well. So we wanted to create something that played out in about an hour, because that's reasonably what you could expect people to commit to if they're going to try something new.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay. So how does the memory stuff play out? Is it like a grid of an empty grid and you're kind of putting in pictures and a montage kind of thing?
Yeah, so there are 2 different flavors of memory cards in the game. So when you provide palliative care to Billy, you will get the partial memories. So on the back of those, there's a quote from Billy, and on the front where the actual picture is, there's an image of Billy at some point of his life, but everything surrounding him is blurred. Everything is like this beautiful art style that our artist Bryn Jones did, which is all sort of like paint strokes, and it's stunning when you see the whole thing put out in front of you. In what you then need to do, and you are correct, yes, there is this sort of like this imaginary grid, the Billy's collected memories. On the side of each of those cards are these little dashes. We call them stitches in the game, as you're stitching these memories together. And there's like one unique solution. It's like a jigsaw of memory, essentially. So it builds this grid of 30 memories. So there are 5 different timelines. One being like his most recent memories, and the 5th one being his childhood memories. And it works through in a chronological order. But then to find out the story behind these memories, you actually need to spend more time with him. You need to spend those care tokens that Rory mentioned earlier, and those will allow you to hopefully focus and concentrate Billy on providing the clear memories. So these are, for every single partial memory that's in the deck, there is a corresponding clear memory, and this is like the full art version of the thing. He literally gives you the full picture, and you see everything that happened in this scene. And like, we encourage the players to then pick up both the cards, see what that quote was that he opened with, and then sort of like see what is your interpretation of the image that you've just revealed.
Great. That all sounds really awesome.
So kind of during the game, what I love is we're constantly kind of drip feeding, or Billy is constantly drip feeding information to the players in the form of these quotes that appear on the back of the partial memory cards. Then you've got the front, which will kind of give you a clue as to his age at the time. Then you'll have the clear memory, which will fill you in more. And then there's the added layer of the incredible narrative that we co-wrote with author and screenwriter Glenn Patterson, that then kind of pieces things together in even more detail, so that really by the end of the game you'll really understand the extraordinary life of this ordinary person.
Awesome. So that is a mechanical look at the game, but I want to talk about theme. About time we move past all that. Okay, cool. So I was going to ask the question, how did you guys kind of navigate talking about such a difficult theme, talking about somebody dying and keeping them alive? Then kind of looking into the game, I noticed that, Michael, you had done an interview with Shiny Happy Meeples on her blog, and the quote or the idea that you put forward was that this is kind of an Irish look at death. Could you maybe explain a little bit about what you meant by that?
Yeah, sure. So I might not sound it, but I am 100% Irish, and obviously Rory is as well, as you can tell from his dulcet tones. But we've been discussing this over the last few months, and as Irish people, we deal with death in a very, I don't know, kind of positive way. For a lot of people, for a lot of civilizations, death is seen as a thing to put away, a thing that is never referred to, a thing to be feared. But I don't know, for the Irish, it's more like, okay, here's a weird story. When my granddad died, when I was about, I think 13, 14 years old, I remember we flew over from London, where we were living at the time, and we had a wake, and the wake is basically like, it's a big party before the funeral, and we had his body sat up in a chair in the living room.
Whoa.
I didn't realize that.
And it's just sort of, it's such a, I mean, I know this might just be a Fox/Malloy family thing, but yeah, I remember sort of like standing there looking at like this lump of ex-grandfather, and everybody was just sort of like chatting and sort of like, singing his praises and hurling abuse at him, and because everybody was drunk out of their mind at that point. But I mean, there's a corpse sitting in the corner, of course it is. But it is a celebration. The Irish view of death and funerals is very much like, it is a celebration of the person's life. but we also don't hold back if we think they were a bit of an ass.
I just have to point out that that probably is a Fox exception, because most families would have an open coffin, and it's an opportunity for people to kind of, pay their last respects to a person who has died. But it is very much a celebration of that person's life, and you joke about like what an idiot they were for dying, and
how could they not have avoided that?
The stories about their past. Well, it's the Irish sense of humor, kind of it's sarcasm filled with love, and so I think we're not afraid to kind of face it, because I think as children we've all encountered it at some point or other, and layered on top of that is I have very personal experiences with. Back in 2002, my father had cancer and he died from it. And we spent the last weeks sitting with him at night. That was my job, basically, was at night I would sit with him and we'd have people come and go. So I saw the effect of that kind of palliative care, that sometimes you couldn't provide medical care because you can't save the person. But there's other care you can provide. And there's actually one aspect of the game that is directly inspired from that experience of what happens when you sit up with someone at night.
Wow. Did I read somewhere that there was because this game has gone through a lot of iterations in terms of the theme, so like caring for Alzheimer's or caring for like different ways in which that care plays out. Is that also part of what feeds the theme of the game? So
yeah, we originally the game started with an idea I had one night at Essen, with a conversation in the car with a colleague about Alzheimer's. And for me, the idea was to make a game that was almost like Ticket to Ride in reverse, where instead of stations, you would have memories that were linked to each other and they were gradually fading. And the players had to kind of try and rebuild the links and minimize the decline. But I think kind of working with Michael on it over time, we realized that you can't win that game. It's only a matter of how well you can lose it. But really the seed of that idea was to create a game that was filled with poignancy for players. And so we tried loads of different iterations. And I mean, Michael's been incredible with just a range of ideas and his willingness to kind of try different things and kind of take on myself and Anita's feedback. We finally hit on something which was the idea of this tableau of memories, and we still wanted to keep the poignancy, and so that's why we focused really on the idea of this person at the end of their life and having regrets, because I think everyone could relate to that in some shape or form, that they might know someone in their life, or they see themselves heading towards it, and if they haven't, you know what, they might learn something from playing the game as well.
Absolutely. You mentioned, Michael, I saw in the forums that you did indicate that there would be a solo mode, not ready now, but perhaps coming soon.
Oh yeah, I mean, so we always intended for this game to be played solo, and when the first information went up about it just before Nuremberg, obviously it said, 1 to 4 players. What with it being a co-op game, yes, it is entirely soloable, but Rory was very much of the idea that he didn't just want the solo version of the game to be, multiplayer solitaire, just multi-rolling it, as it were. So the reason that we put it on as 2 to 4 at the moment, and on the box it will say 2 to 4 players as well, is simply because we have a solo mode, and it is unique. It is its own thing. It's, you are just one person, and you are essentially ordering an army of assistants around and then trying your best to keep everything, keep on top of everything. But we have only managed to get it tested up to, I think, scenario 8, I believe. And we didn't want to put it in saying, oh yeah, this definitely works, because we wanted to check it with scenario 9. We wanted to check it with scenario 10. But the solo mode will be available through files on BGG, and it'll also be available on the wearehubgames.com site as well, from launch, if not before. So the moment we finish the rulebook, we'll then sort of the rulebook is pretty much done and dusted. It's just the final bits of layout are going out now, because it's going to print in a couple of days' time. So once that's up, we'll put it up and people can see for themselves.
So is it like one nurse with a bunch of helper bots, and you kind of deploy the little helper bots?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite ways to play it. So when we were play testing it, I was actually playing it at home at night quite a bit, playing the solitaire mode, and it's essentially that you are the permanent shift manager. And oh my god, it's brutal.
It is.
So
Bring your coffee.
well, like one of the things was that you have to be able to take on more stress to do this job. And like Michael was saying, we had it working against a lot of the scenarios. There was just a few where we kind of felt it was kind of edge cases could come up that would throw it off. And so we just wanted a bit more time to make sure we had consistent rules that would work across the whole game.
All right, cool. So I guess the last thing we could talk about is reception. So you guys have demoed the game at Nuremberg Toy Fair, at UK Games Expo. Anywhere else?
We showed it to one person at ACD Games Day, which is like a trade show run by ACD, the distributors over in the States. And I mean, Rory, you played that one. It was with the wonderful and beautiful Chris Leader, and he had, I think you could safely say, the time of his life playing it.
Oh my god, we high-fived each other at the end of the game. So the way the game went was, we have this, oh my god, we don't, we're so screwed, this just is going to hell. And then it was like, I think we have an opportunity, I think we have one. And then it was literally, I think on the last day, because Billy's life plays out over 13 days, we managed to basically find the fifth memory in the game. And actually, that's one thing I wanted to mention, because it's a question that came up quite a lot. In the game, there's 30 cards that tell the story of Billy's life, and that tells the full story. But when you play the game, in the first scenario, you're only going to get to see 5, maybe 6 of those cards, and you're still not really going to understand what's going on. So over the course of the 5 scenarios, Billy is going to talk to you about different times of his life, different relationships that he has. And so the memories will keep coming out in different forms and sequences as you begin to see the links between different elements of his life. And it's not really until you've played the full game will you actually ever get the full picture of the troubled life of Billy Kerr.
All right. And you are, like I said, you're going to be demoing it at Origins and at GenCon. I mean, what you were saying before the call was that it's bare to kind of explain, especially quickly, especially in a crowded demo space. But once people get into it, then the reception has just been pretty good, right?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't take very long to actually get into the whole thing. So how I've been demoing it is I've actually been running 2 games at a time where I set up the first round so everybody gets to see the different types of cards that you'll see on each shift. And then I essentially just let people go and then jump in when they need a little bit of advice. But I mean, it's a combination of like the really compelling story, the really high quality gameplay experience, the beautiful art, not just Bryn's art, but also our art director, Winnie Sheck, is responsible for putting together everything that's not Billy related. So she did the boards, the layout, the whole everything else. And you have this beautiful, sort of very clean aesthetic. And she will be delighted that I'm referring to it as the word aesthetic, because that's not a word in my vocabulary most of the time. So you have that, and then
it looks nice.
And then you have these beautiful painterly kind of illustrations by Bryn, and they come together to make this game that when it's sat out on the table and like you're a couple of rounds in, like we saw this so much at UK Games Expo, people would walk by and they would just see this curious juxtaposition of medical and personal and these beautiful memories coming out and this entirely beautiful game. And they would just stand and watch like entire playthroughs. Like we had John Kovalex, the comic book guy, the illustrator who does all the Munchkin stuff. He came and watched like a game and a half while I was sort of like just sat there, and he was like transfixed at this thing. It was beautiful. It was like wonderful.
I think that's one thing we worked really hard to achieve with the game, both in the aesthetic and the gameplay, is the game tells the story as you're playing it. So like Michael was saying, if you're watching it, you're almost seeing cutaways between like what's going on in the hospital, because every patient card has an illustration of Billy on it. So whether he's stable or whether he's deteriorating or whether he's having a medical emergency, we've got the mechanical information on it, but we also have like visual information that really pulls you into the story. You're seeing where he is on the condition track. You're seeing visually how stressed the staff are. You're seeing how much of Billy has been talking to you by the number of cards that you have in play and how many clear memories. So you can literally look at the game and kind of get a snapshot of the story that's being told through the gameplay. And that was really a very conscious decision in terms of how we approached the design of the game.
Awesome. So that is the Holding On, The Troubled Life of Billy Kerr on demo at Origins and at GenCon. Anything else that we need to know about the demo or the game itself?
You want to go for it?
Well, first of all, it'll probably be in high demand if we've learned anything from UK Games Expo. I'm not sure what time this is going out, but we will be putting up a pre-booking form probably tomorrow, the 7th or 8th, where people can pre-book slots, but we'll also be saving slots for each day where people can come along and book into play, especially at the open gaming area.
Yeah, so that's particularly for Origins. Unfortunately, all of the Gen Con slots are already gone. Those were gone in like within an hour of them going up online, which is really gratifying, but also slightly terrifying. But I believe the game is also going to be on the... Are we allowed to say that? Potentially?
I don't know.
All right, so there might be the opportunity for walk-up demos at a certain booth in the actual trade hall at GenCon. So I would say follow us on Twitter. Our Twitter is We Are Hub Games, or one word, and you'll be able to sort of like get the latest information as to what's happening. But yeah, if you're going to Origins, if you haven't managed to get on the sign-ups for the pre-stuff, just race to our booth, which is number 237, and we will get you signed up for one of the... I tried to work it out yesterday. I think it would be something like 52 or 54 demo games that we'd be running over the course of the 5 days. That's a lot.
So I know we're being reticent there, but I think I can say, because it's all signed and done and dusted. So Asmodee North America will be the distributor for Holding On. So they'll be working through the likes of Alliance and ACD and Southern Hobby and all the good distributors. So retailers should have no problem getting it. Mm-hmm. Hopefully they will be demoing it on their booth. That was their plan. But if people are interested in giving it a go, they should definitely nicely ask Asmodee if they will be demoing Holding On at GenCon.
Yes. But of course you won't get to play it with us, but we're very popular boys now, so I wish. But no, we'll be wandering around, like in the evenings at Origins and GenCon, we'll be wandering around with copies of the game under our arms. And if people want to play, we'll play, because we want everybody to experience the story. Like we believe in this game, we believe in this story, and we're delighted that so many people at UK Games Expo also believe in it. I mean, if you look at any of the write-ups that have been going up online, people are excited to not only try the game, but also now that they've experienced it for themselves, they're excited to continue to work through the rest of the games. It's wonderful.
One thing we haven't just hit on is the nature of the theme and the topic. And one of the things when we were designing this, we had, some people were saying it's great to see different topics being covered, and others saying, why on earth would anyone want to play a game like this when they just want entertainment, that they're sitting down to have fun when they play a game. And we really kind of set ourselves the challenge of proving that there was an audience for this, because the kind of idea behind this game is telling the extraordinary tales of ordinary lives. We all know someone who, when you scratch the surface, they tell you these stories and you say, oh my God, I never knew that happened to you.
Or like sitting your grandfather's corpse up in a funeral.
Yeah, exactly, that kind of thing. But even within my own family, there's, which happened at my dad's, when he was dying, his best friend came along and started telling stories about his childhood. I was like, you never told us any of this stuff. And so we think there's lots of stories to tell. I think the game system we have provides a great opportunity to explore themes of identity and gender and culture. And that's something we very much want to explore in kind of future versions of the game. So hopefully if this proves successful, all the ideas we have in our notebooks will be given an outlet in future holding-ons.
Maybe. Shh, don't say anything. Shh, secret.
Including the assassin. I want the assassin.
Seriously, man, that's a secret promo. It's going to happen. Come up and ask us at Essen, have you got the secret assassin promo? It's just like, shh, don't say anything.
we did actually joke about the idea of having the trader mechanic where just, but I think we'd have to change the setting from a hospital to like a more FBI,
CIA black site.
Yeah.
Right. Guantanamo Bay or something. Yeah. All right, so that was Rory and Michael from Hub Games. Thank you so much for your time. Please, they are so friendly. I have met at least Michael in person. I've dealt with Rory a couple times now. So friendly. Just go up to them, ask them to play a game or just talk about the stuff. They are totally open to it. Good luck with the rest of the demos, and looking forward to the game.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Jason.
All right, that is going to do it for another episode of the Every Night is Game Night preview series. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. So a couple of quick announcements. First of all, we were going to release this episode on Friday. I made a last-minute call to release it today, which is Wednesday the 6th. I think people are just heading out to Origins, so I wanted to get something in your feed for your commute to get yourself pumped up about the game. And as you heard towards the end of the episode, there are some slots available for Origins. Hopefully you hear this episode, get interested, and go take advantage of a demo if you can. Number 2, today is the first day of our contest that we are running on Every Night is Game Night. Go ahead and join the Facebook group. We just started a Facebook group. And go ahead and comment on the geek list. Yes, Every Day's Game Night episodes have a geek list. That's where I keep track of everything. If you do those two things, you will be entered into our little drawing, and you will be able to win a prize pack, which includes Sunset Over Water and Herbaceous. So those are two very cool games from Pencil First Games. Thank you very, very much for providing copies of those. If you want to go ahead and check out the third entry into that little series, which is Herbaceous Sprouts, Herbaceous the Dice game, that is currently on Kickstarter right now. So go ahead and check out the geek list. Go ahead and check out the new Facebook group. Give us a join and enter for your chance to win. Besides those two places, you can also reach out to us at ENGN_podcast on the Twitter, at everynightisgamenight.com. So we are all over the place, and now more than ever, we are very available to take your questions, interact with you. So if you wanted to contribute to the show in some way, we are totally open to it. Looking forward to actually getting to know some of the folks who are out there. Thank you very, very much for speaking well of the podcast, listening, and doing all that stuff. One favor to ask, I'm going to ask it every single time, besides the whole joining thing and giving stuff away. We're not giving anything away for this. Which is a rating. Please go ahead and rate us at iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, any place where you can give ratings. So that is going to do it. That is all the promo I have. Whew. That is totally enough for me. We are going to get back on Friday to focusing on regular game content. So until then, later everybody.